we need to talk about Star Wars Jedi Survivor. It really is like a really good game, but like it's a beta. The game isn't finished. It lacks a lot of polish, and I really wish it didn't, especially on PC, so that a lot more people could experience the game for what it truly is, and that at its core is a pretty great game. I believe it does what every great sequel should aim to do, which is build upon the foundation that was laid before it. It does that in every aspect of the game. And before we talk about the level design or what the exploration's like or even the combat, I think it's really important to talk about what really surprised me going into Jedi Survivor, and that was really the storytelling. So I'm not gonna lie, going into this game, I definitely was under the impression that's going to be another Star Wars story. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, right? I like have Star Wars Legos behind me, and I've watched a lot of Star Wars stuff. But I don't think Star Wars is anything high art, of course, and it's more of just like a fun action fantasy epic that's enjoyed by all ages. You know, it's nothing outstanding in my opinion, and I think sometimes it's not willing to take the risks that I'd like to see in its stories. But I was incredibly surprised by Jedi Survivor. The first 60% of the story wasn't anything outstanding. The acting was pretty good. The sort of threads that were laid throughout the story were pretty good. But I really didn't see much. I think it'd probably be a lot more enjoyable for people who are already large fans of like more modern Star Wars stuff, because they talk a lot about the High Republic, studying an ancient civilization. It's all right, nothing crazy. There's characters tied to the ancient civilization. I don't think the characters are phenomenal, but it's like kind of cool for Star Wars nerds to see. But after the 60% mark, there's a huge thing that I don't even want to spoil here. I think it's really cool. I think you should play the game yourself. I think they do a great job humanizing the antagonist without spoiling anything too much. I think they did a great job with the ending. And there was a part that I definitely thought was going to be pretty corny and a little bit maybe even out of character, but it was done pretty well. And the acting near the end of the game, especially the actor for Cal, Cameron Monaghan, I think is his name, did a great job making Cal a more compelling character near the end of the story for sure. And circling back to the sequel thing and how it builds upon the foundation laid before it, Jedi Survivor definitely fleshes out characters from the previous game whilst adding new characters to the cast that do a great job of expanding the universe that is already like sort of enormous. Anyways, now that all the story stuff's aside, I don't want to get too deep into spoilers because I really think it's something that you should experience for yourself. You know, when the game gets out of its beta state that it's currently in. The game takes a unique detour when it comes to the level design and sort of how the exploration works in Jedi Survivor, which is something that I think could be taken a little bit awkwardly by some players. It isn't the same semi-linear experience that was laid before it in Jedi Fallen Order, but more so like open world style levels that I have a hard time comparing to another game. My brain immediately jumps to like Dragon Age Inquisition. It's like, yo, they're open world style levels. It's not super seamless open world, but they're large levels that you're able to explore in depth. And there are optional like quests, and there's optional dungeons, and there's optional bosses laid throughout the world, and there's a bunch of cosmetics to collect and a bunch of rewards laid throughout the world, which is all great and fun to explore for sure, or it gives you a reason to explore the world. But I don't know if open world style level is the correct way to describe the sort of exploration in the game. It still has the Metroidvania qualities and the immense amount of puzzles laid throughout the world, which is a nice touch to have an action game have the amounts, or I guess it's an action adventure game, have the amount of puzzles that the game has, and to have these puzzles reward you with cosmetics, reward you with skill points, reward you with stuff for the player hub that's given to you. I like all of that. That's great. I do think maybe the world would be a little bit overwhelming for some players, but thankfully, the overwhelming parts of the world are very optional, and you don't really have to do any of the side stuff. It was very surprising to me, and I do think a welcome touch for me personally to have so much more world to explore for sure. Now, the combat, unlike the story and the exploration, didn't really change too much. Sure, it does what its sequel is supposed to do, and it sort of gives you more player choice. It expands on the combat that was in the previous game, Jedi Fallen Order. That is, it gives you more choice in how to fight enemies. There's a larger enemy diversity. There are more stances. I guess there weren't stances in the previous game, but now instead of giving you like a like, hey, this is Dark Souls, you're a dex build, or you're a strength build, or you're a magic user. You have different stances for your lightsaber, so you can have a dual wield stance on your lightsaber, and it's like, oh hey, I'm a dex build. Or you can have a cross guard lightsaber, and it's like, oh yo, I'm a strength build, I have slow attacks that deal high damage. That stuff is pretty cool. I like how they gave you more freedom in how you approach different scenarios for sure. However, I sort of would have liked them to fine tune the combat a little bit more, and maybe just something as simple as giving you a more traditional light and heavy attack. There is this thing called a force attack, which you build up a force bar, which is I don't know, like a resource bar as you deal damage and as you attack in the game. It's like any resource dumping mechanic in an action game. You fill up bar, the more the bar is full, the more damage you can do by using abilities that spend the resource. And then you have that alongside the light attack, alongside the force abilities used in combat. But I really, really would have liked them to implement like a heavy attack alongside your light attack and your force ability with your lightsaber for sure. To allow it like, hey, I'm fighting the boss, light attack when I'm not sure if I'm going to get hit, and heavy attack when I'm like, I'm going to deal lots of damage. It left a little bit to be desired for me anyways, for sure. Also, it did seem like, at least on the normal difficulty, you weren't encouraged enough to swap the different lightsaber stances, as you're able to pick two to carry with you at all times. And I would have liked them to encourage that a little bit more, or to maybe make each lightsaber stance. I don't know if I want them to be a little bit more niche, or if I wish I was more encouraged to use different lightsaber stances. I think one thing they could do to encourage me, I guess, would be to have more in-depth skill trees. I think the skill tree in the game isn't as impactful as I'd like it to be. After, like, I don't know, 15 hours in the game, in this game that took me about 30 hours to beat, I would have liked to have a reason to care about leveling up. Halfway into the game, I was like, I don't really care about these skill points. I'm just gonna throw them in random areas. I saw there's an achievement to level up skill trees. I'm gonna just like fully flesh out these skill trees, even though I don't care about the abilities. So maybe making it so the skills were a little bit more impactful, or just adding more passives to enhance the way you play could be more fulfilling to me. But I guess I'm describing, hey, make the game an RPG, which, I mean, the game does feel a lot more like an RPG than the previous game. But I would have liked something to encourage me to swap between stances, or to encourage me to level up for sure. Speaking of encouragement, this game definitely rewards you a lot more than the previous game does in terms of what is throughout the world. And now there's like a player hub situation that is, I think, pretty fulfilling. It acts sort of like a player housing system, in that you have like a farm, you have a fish tank that you're able to customize, you have a mini game strategy board game that you're able to play. You have a DJ that you're able to play your own music. Well, not your own music, but music that you collect throughout the world. And all of these things definitely encourage you and motivate you to explore the world, because you can get different pieces for your strategy board, or you can get different fish throughout the world to put in your fish tank, or you can get different seeds to plant in your garden, or different music from exploring. That sort of stuff is like super nice. And on top of that, there's a lot more customization when it comes to your lightsaber, how you want your lightsaber to look, how you want BD to look, your little droid that heals you, how you want your character to look, how you want Cal Kestis to look. There are a lot more hairstyles. I mean, in the previous game, you couldn't customize your hair at all. You can change your hair, you can change your beard, your shirt, your jackets, your pants, and all of that definitely makes exploration a lot more fulfilling than it was in the previous game, and I appreciate that a ton. And I feel like I have to say this one last time, going back to the beta thing. The game should not have been released in April. After I finished the game, I couldn't help but to think to myself, wow, that was like a really good game, and I had a lot of fun playing that game. But I know there's so many people that are never going to play this game for no other reason than on release. It wasn't fully released. Super understandable, super fair. I don't want to spend $70 on a beta. I did play the game on PS5, and it seemed that luckily that was a good move. I guess I learned from other PC ports this year, right? It really is a shame. Even on PS5, there were lots of frame drops, and there were awkward transitions between cutscenes and real-time gameplay, and there were just like awkward moments of popping in during cutscenes, or during moments that are meant to be super impactful and emotional, and it really sucked. As a whole, I think Jedi Survivor, performance issues aside, is a great game. But, you should buy it when you're like able to buy it when the game is finished. I definitely recommend to people who like action games, to people who like action adventure games, to people who like exploring and action adventure games. And yeah, what a shame.
Fucking.
What am I even looking at? What is happening? I hate you. I literally hate you. You fucking dude. This stupid fucking idiot, dude. I swear to fucking God, bro. He literally fucking what even was that?